Today, we are talking about a match made in absolute diabolical corporate sponsored hell, and I mean that in the best way humanly possible. We need to talk about fan casting. Usually, fan casting is completely unhinged. You go on Twitter or X, whatever Elon is calling it today, and you see people demanding things like Danny DeVito as the Master Chief, which honestly, I would watch. I would watch the absolute crap out of that. Just imagine Danny coming out of a cryopod offering Cortana a nice egg in this trying time, but usually fan casts are a wild shot in the dark that makes zero sense to Hollywood executives. But every once in a blue moon, the internet collective hive mind comes together and actually cooks up a Michelin star idea. Today, we are looking at a fan cast so perfect, so incredibly spot on, that if the studio executives don't make it happen, they should legally be barred from ever making a movie or TV show again. I'm talking about the current massive push across social media to cast Antony Starr, yes, the man, the myth, the milk-drinking psychopath Homelander from The Boys, as Albert Wesker in the Resident Evil franchise. And the crazy part, Antony Starr completely agrees with it. There was a post circulating on Covered Geekly recently that brought this back into the spotlight. Fans have been putting images of Starr side by side with Wesker from Resident Evil 5, and the resemblance is actually terrifying. We're talking the slick back blonde hair, the sharp jawline, and most importantly, that dead, cold, sociopathic stare that makes you feel like you are nothing more than a bug on a windshield. Someone brought this up to Starr a while back, and he essentially said, yeah, I see it, I agree. So let's unpack this, because as a guy who talks about gaming, news, and the business side of marketing, this is what we call a slam dunk, a generational layup. And if Capcom or whoever owns the live action rights to Resident Evil right now drops this ball, it will be the biggest fumble since Sony decided to re-release Morbius in theaters because they thought the memes meant people actually wanted to buy tickets. First of all, let's talk about Albert Wesker. If you aren't deep into Resident Evil lore, Wesker is the ultimate bad guy of the franchise. He's the guy who wears sunglasses indoors at night. He's a pharmaceutical executive turned bioterrorist who double crosses everyone, monologues about human evolution, and has a weird borderline romantic obsession with ruining Chris Redfield's life. Seriously, the hatred Wesker has for Chris belongs in a Shakespearean tragedy. Wesker isn't just a monster, he's a corporate sociopath with a god complex who thinks he is literally the next step in human evolution. Now, does that sound familiar at all to anyone? A blonde, blue-eyed corporate product with a massive god complex who looks down on humanity as pathetic little toys. Antony Starr has literally spent the last several years mastering this exact character profile on The Boys. As Homelander, Starr has perfected the art of the micro-expression. If you watch The Boys, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Homelander doesn't even have to say anything to be terrifying. His eyes twitch, his jaw clenches, and he gives this fake, PR-friendly smile that doesn't reach his eyes. You look at him and you just know he is thinking about melting your skull with laser vision. That is Albert Wesker. Wesker is a guy who will shake your hand, offer you a promotion at Umbrella Corporation, and then calmly press a button that drops you into a pit of genetically mutated zombie dogs. Antony Starr wouldn't even have to act. He just needs to put on a pair of black shades, trade the American flag cape for a black leather trench coat, and stop drinking breast milk. Actually, knowing Resident Evil lore, they'd probably just replace the milk with the T virus in a wine glass. Let's look at the state of Resident Evil in live action right now, because frankly, it's a disaster. It is a certified biological wasteland. First, we had the Paul W.S. Anderson movies starring Mila Jovovich. And look, I will give credit where credit is due. The first movie, kind of a fun, claustrophobic 2000s action horror flick. The laser hallway scene is, of course, iconic, but by movie 6, Mila is doing backflips over satellite dishes while fighting clones of herself in a post-apocalyptic desert. It completely abandoned the survival horror aspect of the games and just turned into The Matrix with zombies. They had a Wesker in those movies, Sean Roberts, and he looked the part, sure. He had the sunglasses, but he was basically just an action figure spouting bad dialogue. Then we got Welcome to Raccoon City. That movie actually tried to be faithful to the games, blending Resident Evil 1 and 2, but they shoved so much plot into a 2-hour runtime that it felt like reading a Wikipedia summary of the games while someone's shown a flashlight in your eyes. The Wesker in that movie was played by Tom Hopper. Great actor, love him in Umbrella Academy, but they wrote Wesker as this sympathetic, confused jock who just needed some money. That's not Wesker. Wesker doesn't need a GoFundMe. He's a calculated, cold-blooded mastermind. And then, oh man, then we had the Netflix Resident Evil series. Let's pour one out for the late, great Lance Reddick. Phenomenal actor, absolute legend. But the script they gave him, good lord. They had Albert Wesker cloning himself, raising teenage daughters, and getting wrapped up in high school drama. Wesker is a guy whose ultimate goal is complete global saturation of a bioweapon. He does not care if his daughter's boyfriend didn't text her back. This franchise is begging, literally on its hands and knees, for a live-action adaptation that takes the villain seriously. The games have had a massive renaissance. Resident Evil 7, Village, and the remakes of 2 and 3 and 4 have brought the franchise back to the top of the gaming mountain. Capcom is printing money, but their film and television department is stuck in a loop of making B-movie garbage that disrespects the source material. This brings me to the marketing and business side of things, which you guys know I love to touch on here as always. We're living in an era where fan casting actually drives marketing. Look at Henry Cavill in The Witcher. He was a fan cast because he was a massive nerd who loved the games and the books. When he was cast, the internet exploded. Gave the show millions of dollars in free PR before a single trailer even dropped. Look at Pedro Pascal in The Last of Us. Look at Ryan Reynolds as Deadpool. That whole movie only got made because leaked test footage proved the fans wanted it. When you have a massive IP like Resident Evil and you have an A-list actor like Antony Starr is currently dominating pop culture through Amazon Prime, and the actor is openly saying, yes, I would do this, you don't form a committee, you don't have a focus group, you pull up to his house with a dump truck full of cash, you hand him a pair of Oakley sunglasses, and you start rolling the cameras. From a marketing perspective, casting Antony Starr as Wesker breaks the internet. Your first teaser trailer doesn't even need to show zombies. You just show a dark room, a leather chair, and Antony Starr turning around to look at the camera, pushing his sunglasses up the bridge of his nose. That trailer hits 50 million views in 24 hours, guaranteed. It also solves the biggest problem with video game adaptations, the villain problem. Video game villains are often incredibly campy. Wesker is a walking anime villain. He literally dodges bullets like Neo and punches boulders. Well, Chris punches the boulder, but Wesker takes the punches. If you cast a mediocre actor, that campiness falls flat and becomes cringe. But if you cast a phenomenal actor who knows how to balance camp with genuine skin-crawling terror, you get magic. Antony Starr does this every single episode on The Boys. Homelander is an inherently ridiculous concept. He wears a padded muscle suit with an eagle on his shoulder, but Starr plays him with such raw, unhinged intensity that you forget how silly the costume is, and you just feel terrified for whoever is in the room with him. He could deliver Wesker's most ridiculous lines from the games like, 7 minutes. 7 minutes is all I can spare to play with you. And he would make it sound like a genuine death threat. I think we also need to talk about where Antony Starr is in his career right now. The Boys is heading into its final season. He's about to be a free agent in the pop culture landscape. He's going to be looking for his next big franchise. He doesn't strike me as a guy who wants to go play third fiddle in a Marvel movie, stand in front of a green screen talking to a tennis ball on a stick. He thrives in gritty, mature R-rated environments. A hard R-rated HBO-style Resident Evil series focusing strictly on the Spencer Mansion incident from the first game, with Antony Starr playing the captain of the Star's Alpha team who slowly reveals his betrayal. That is appointment television. You make it a claustrophobic, terrifying thriller. You build the tension over 8 episodes. You let Starr play the authoritative, trusted leader for the first half of the season. Then you let him completely unleash the psycho in the finale. So what's stopping them? Mostly Hollywood ego. Studio executives hate feeling like they are taking orders from X. They want to be the ones who discover the brilliant casting choice. They want to cast Timothée Chalamet as Wesker just to subvert expectations or something stupid like that. But I'm telling you, as someone who studies trends, as someone who watches gaming audiences make or break franchises, this is the golden ticket. We've seen what happens when studios ignore the fans for too long. We get the Borderlands movie. Yeah, I said it. We get adaptations that feel completely disconnected from the soul of the games they are based on. But we've also seen the massive success that comes when studios respect the source material. Fallout on Amazon was a masterpiece because it understood the assignment. The Last of Us on HBO swept the Emmys because they treated the game like prestige literature. Resident Evil deserves that treatment. It is the grandfather of survival horror. It practically invented the genre, and Albert Wesker is its Darth Vader. You don't hand Darth Vader to just anybody. You hand him to a guy who knows how to make an audience hold their breath. I really want to know what you guys think about this. Am I hyping this up too much? Or is Antony Starr truly the only logical choice for Wesker at this point? Can you see him pulling off the accent? Because Wesker has that weird, vaguely mid-Atlantic, highly educated villain voice. I think Starr, being a Kiwi, could easily dial into that cold, calculated rhythm. Drop down in the comments and let me know. If not, Antony Starr, who do you cast? Because my backup choice is honestly Michael Fassbender, but I think Fassbender takes him a little too seriously to put on the leather trench coat and inject himself with a glowing green virus. Also, on a quick life and channel update note before we wrap up here, I'm looking into completely revamping the background setup for the video soon, getting some new lighting in, maybe finally putting up some of the gaming memorabilia I've had sitting in boxes since I moved. I want the production value to match the quality of the rants. Plus, the algorithms have been weird lately, so any engagement you guys drop, likes, comments, all the standard YouTube stuff, genuinely helps push the news out there. I appreciate every single one of you who tunes in to listen to me lose my mind over video game casting. Make sure you hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. We cover all things gaming industry news, and occasionally we fix Hollywood's problems for them right here on the channel. Get loud on X, guys. Tag Capcom, tag Antony Starr. Let's meme this into existence just like we did with the Sonic movie redesign. We have the power. Until next time, this has been Cyler Ray. Stay safe out there. Don't trust any creepy pharmaceutical corporations, and I will catch you in the next video. Peace.